Hey guys, it's me, YayaDiamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day. I'm so very excited to have my next guest on the show today. Not only is he an author and our sponsor of today's show, but he's also an academic person. Like he's smart. He's smart. Okay? He's smart. Like when I'm trying to learn, I like to go to people who are way smarter than I am. And he is. So, Mr. Bricker's here today. I want to welcome him to the show. Thank you so much, Mr. Keith Bricker, for being here and also for being the sponsor for today's show. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it so much.
Awesome. Awesome. So, first of all, I want to go ahead and ask you, please tell us about yourself and how you got involved in this.
Okay, well, I was a teacher, counselor, and so forth in the high school for 20 some years, and we developed a program that enabled parents to get much more involved with their students' academic life, future planning life, and etc.
Mhm.
We found that parents have the best input and ideas on what will work for their kids simply because they knew them right from the start, where the school, obviously did not.
Right.
So it became very important to get parents involved. Now, generally speaking, a decent percentage of parents will do that anyway, 10% or so. There's another percentage out there or so that get involved when things don't go well.
Mhm.
But you need parents to be involved all the way through, okay?
Right.
And with this program, we were able to get about 95% of the parents in for a conference between the student, the parent, and the counselor. And those initial conferences lasted about an hour. And quite often there was a follow-up,
Right.
because of activities to do in the future and that type of thing.
Mhm.
And then we would get the kids out shadowing. The conference that we had and the skills identified and etc. allowed the students to make career, not choices, but options where they could get out and shadow and determine whether they really liked it or not, or it fit them or not. And what we found was that about, obviously the academics and that kind of thing were important, but the biggie was environment. Different work settings have different environments. Some kids like, the medical thing, other people like vocational things, but we really found that environment thing was huge. Okay. So then we put together a number of activities that allowed us to identify the criteria that fit the students that could be used for future decision making. Okay. Because at 12 to 15 and so forth, kids aren't old enough to be making those decisions relating to, family, careers, community service, personal growth, and then for the more immediate curriculum choice. What we came up with was really helpful in the curriculum choices, and having the parents there was really helpful for that also. Yeah. So it was an overall process that evolved over about 10 years. And, it like any program, it got better as we went along.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. People don't realize that, I think people understand. How can I say this? People grasp the fact that the next generation is going to run the country. The next generation is going to be the next generation that takes over for the last generation or the one before that, right? I think they understand the concept, but they don't grasp the necessity of it to actually, educate these children. A lot of these kids don't do what we've been taught to do. Balance a checkbook. I mean, all of these things. I mean, this was something that was taught in elementary school. Counting money. Uh, having people pay you and counting the change that you're going to give back to them without a computer. These things were done for us. So what was the urgency for you to actually write this book? Because I understand the academics of it all, but you didn't have to do that, did you?
No, I'll tell you how it got started. We, at the high school, we had a program in place through the vocational department and so forth, where kids were going out shadowing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up with a list of like 165 businesses where kids could go out and shadow. Well, the feedback from the the employers or the employees that actually took the kid for shadowing, the concern came back that kids were going out to shadowing locations but didn't really go through a process to figure out whether this one made sense or not. Mm-hmm. It was more just see the pants kind of thing. Wow. And so we said, well, we need something in place here. So kids are making choices based on concrete information and criteria, mm-hmm. not just I think I feel kind of thing, okay? Yeah. And that's really where this whole thing started in terms of the parent, student, counselor conferences, okay? Because we needed to come up with that. And so we put together some ideas and then started to experiment with it and so forth. And over time, it evolved into what we ended up with. But, it really was born out of need, let me put it that way. Because, businesses don't appreciate kids coming when there just is no connection, And so we were able to go develop a process where there was a potential connection. And what we found with that, we got this process in place and, parents coming in and so forth, meeting counselor and the kid, is that we would send a kid out to shadow. They would come back and about half of them would say, hey, that's pretty good. Some of them would come back and say, thanks, but no thanks. And that was usually the environment that caused that. Okay. But then what we also found that the kids that said, okay, this is pretty good, we would send them to another similar business, okay, mm-hmm. like a second shadowing kind of thing. And if they came back on that as positive, then you had a winner, okay? So it took a lot of time. It took a lot of involvement. It takes a lot of patience on employers' part. But, let's face it, these are our kids. They're worth it.
Definitely. I find that it's like, okay, so you had over a 90% success rate on actually the participation rate, or is that the necessity in, or was that your expectation? I mean, I'm not understanding.
No, I had no idea what we were going to be able to get in, but we were able to get over 95% of the parents in actually.
That is amazing.
Yes, it was. That was the most amazing part about the whole thing. But the point was you had to call the parents and encourage them to come in and explain why. Mm-hmm. Now, to get that, what we did was we would take a class list of, let's say we were going to work on ninth graders, okay? Mm-hmm. We would take a class list on GPA starting at the top to the bottom, okay, based on the grade point average. Well, the reason for that was the better the grades the student has, the more likely the parents are to want to participate. And so we would get almost all of those, that top 25% without a problem. Mm-hmm. In fact, as we went along in time, it got down to where they were calling us to set up an appointment. Okay. Wow. So yeah. Because I had a lot of parents leave the conference and look back at me and give me the thumbs up and tell me, this is the best thing that you guys have ever done for my kid. And because it really, besides going after the skills and other things that we're going to talk about, it built parent-student relationships. Mm-hmm. Okay? It got the parents and the kid talking, where the parent and the counselor kind of guided and had information about it, but the kid made the decision. Right. Okay? And since we're talking about future decisions and so forth and choices, they can make mistakes and it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
But we found that was the most amazing thing that I found about it. In fact, in my 40-some years in education, I was never involved in anything where I got this kind of positive feedback from parents. And where I really saw it was, as a counselor, you have a certain part of the alphabet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've got Susie comes through this year, and 2 years later, Johnny comes along, and the parents are calling me, hey, when are we going to do this with Johnny? That kind of thing. Yeah. So that told me that, hey, you got a concept here that's good. Mm-hmm. Now you got to get it in writing and get it to where, it can be communicated and that type of thing. And that's what we, set out to do.
Wow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I should get into a little bit of specifically what you're using for information sources for this conference.
Right.
The biggie is skills. You're trying to identify 2 to 3 skills that fit activities that kids like from like 4 to the present age, which is usually like 12, 15, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 age group is really critical for coming up with criteria that can be used for the future. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
If you were to talk to a 40, 50-year-old and say, what do you really like to do? And then you ask them after they tell you that, well, what did you really like to do when you were 10? You will find a major connection there.
Right.
You know, so you can identify the criteria from a very early age, and some of that real early stuff is far more innocent than it is later on because it's not messed up by parents and schools and all that kind of stuff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you're after skills, and there's processes to go through that. So it's not just a list and kid picking something off a list. Oh, that sounds good. No, you're trying to come up with a process, which you have, which allows you to identify. You don't need a long list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then besides skills, you also use information from community service that they have been involved with or like to do, information from test scores and patterns, not just grades, but patterns in each subject area and so forth, standardized test scores, interest inventories, and then community service things that they like to get into and so forth. So there's about 5 different categories that you're using for information. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why a counselor doing this in the school is so important because they have all that information. The CA60, whether it's in written form or electronic form, you know, they have that information.
Right.
And a lot of it gets used in this. And I don't want to underestimate the importance of interest inventories here because they can be very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you're going after a package of criteria based on the past and present for the kid, but used then for future decision making. You know, let's face it, you don't want kids making these life choices when they're 15. We don't do a great job when we're 25, you know.
Tell me about it. 35.
Yeah,
Forget 25.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like the advertisement on television where the investment company is saying to the lady, you know, what age do you want your grandkids to have access to your money? And it's 35. You know, well, why is it 35? Because we make dumb choices at 25.
Tell me about it. It would have been gone. By the time you got 35, it would have been gone.
Well, the point is, at 35, you've had enough life experiences of your own.
Yeah.
Start really questioning some of this stuff, which earlier than that sounds great, you know, and it's the old idea that you get more problem solving oriented as you get older.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that with the resources here and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So the process then of this project is to set up an appointment with the student, the parents, and the counselor, and go through this whole process. And like I said, it takes about an hour, and you're identifying the skills, you're pulling out the information from all the information the kid has had up to that point. And sometimes we even get input from teachers and so forth that's quite helpful. Even the information of if the kid had discipline issues and so forth is usually in the CA60. So you can use that and so forth. But it's the process then, here's a biggie. It builds positive interaction between the kid and the parent. Now, let me ask you a question. How many parents with kids 12 to 15 have problems with communication from time to time?
Parents?
Every one of them.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not bad. You know, that's actually positive because that's part of the process of the kid becoming independent over time. So it needs to be a process.
Right.
But, you know, parents quite often look at that as a negative. It's really not. It's really a positive because they're involved in that process of learning how to make choices for themselves and not just, you know, relying on parents, even though it can be pain in the butt, you know, but it's important. Okay. and encourages parents then to get directly involved with the kids' schoolwork and so forth.
Yeah.
Kids will tell you that they don't want that to happen, but
Yeah, they do.
they really do.
They do.
They really do.
Yeah, they do.
Because it gives them a sense of security and so forth that they really need.
Mm-hmm.
Parents being involved and giving support and discipline when they need it, encouragement when they need it, correction when they need it. And this process, adds to that whole thing, which is very good. So those conferences are a really big deal. Now, I would say this. They're very time consuming. This is work. Okay, this is not an easy read 10 minutes, I've got this solved and so forth. No, this conference takes an hour or so. Then there's follow-up to it. Then there's the shadowing. Quite often parents have to get them there and so forth. So it's an involved process. But, parents that got involved with it realized this really does make sense, okay? And the other thing there, it allows the parent who has the most knowledge of the kid to have direct input to decisions, especially like curriculum choices and so forth.
I got you.
Okay? And the other thing, once you've identified skills, especially skills, you only need 2 or 3 of them. You don't need a great long list. But once you've identified those skills, it helps to answer the question that I know every parent that's ever been in school, kid that's been in school, has asked. What good is this ever going to do me?
Hello.
Okay, this course. You've heard that a million times.
I have. Like algebra?
Yes, you have.
Really?
And this process then helps to give some rationale behind that course or the activities happening in that course as to why it's important for their future potential direction. Okay? That's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Because remember, kids at 12 to 15 don't have the life experiences to making these choices for down the road, family or whatever type thing. So the process here becomes really important. Okay. What else here?
I wanted to ask you this question too. Like, okay, so you have the program, you had the program, you're doing the program. I'm not really sure. You wrote the book. Everything is great. You got that 95 percentile. How much of a success rate has this been for the children and parents who have participated in this?
You get that answer way down the road and so forth. The only way I can answer that is to say at the time of the conference, the parents saw it as being very successful or very important to them. The kids would come around. You have about 10% of the kids that are negative on this type of thing. And so how long does it take you to bring the kid around in the conference and so forth so they're moving into a positive mode and so forth? About 90% you didn't have that problem. About 10% you did. And you'd have that with anything you're trying to get those kids to do.
Right.
But the only thing I can say on that one is that when the kids graduated from high school, the number of them that had some reasonable direction, even though they really hadn't made those life road choices yet, but they kind of had a better idea of the options. Okay? So since that question really addresses anywhere from a year to 5 years, whatever, after high school.
Correct.
So that's a tough one to really put a concrete number to.
It hasn't been that long. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So so what motivated you to write the book? I mean, I know that it's the conference. I got it, and the shadowing. I think that's wonderful because back in my day, shadowing was done not just for academics. It wasn't just for like take your kid to school kind of. The work day where you can learn what your parents do for work. But we also went to Scared Straight. I mean, I was a part of that whole thing that went to Scared Straight. Okay, well, we went into the prison system and we saw that too. What is it that makes this a better choice than just giving them a book and say, "Hey, look at all the different things you can do"?
Yeah. Well, the big one, like I said, is skills. You're identifying skills that fit the kid. Now, this whole concept of identifying skills in the process in the book isn't new. I read some materials from 1930 where Father Martin was using this concept and so forth, and I'm assuming it's like in a Catholic school and so forth. But basically what you're doing is having the kid write about things that they'd like to do. That's a key.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not talking about identifying things here, skills that the kid is great at. They're not old enough for that yet. But you're talking about skills, things they like. Okay, I like to play basketball, but I'm not good at it. But there's certain skills there that are part of why I like it. Okay, but so the whole idea then is to identify skills through some writing process, some interviewing, talking, and coming up with the action verbs and so forth that fit the kid the most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Once you've identified that really gives you some direction, because any career materials that you read that's in the library or books and so forth on specific careers, they all give a list of skills at the beginning that of what's needed for be good at this job.
Right.
Well, it really helps if the skills that you like, don't care why you like them, but the skills that you like are part of what you do. Okay? Now, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
If you, and I know they've done this in the past, asking people who are in their 40s and 50s especially, if you had it to do over again, would you have selected a different career?
Oh, wow.
And when they did that, the number was like way high, way too high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, why was that? Okay, well, and as you know, once you get in life and get a family and so forth, it's much harder to change. Okay, just at the beginning. All right. So the whole idea then is if you like what you're doing, you really like what you're doing, you'll do better at it and you'll get better at it.
Right.
If you like what you're doing, you'll have a passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be going to work and say, oh, geez, another day.
Exactly.
You want to like to go do whatever it is you're doing. I don't care why you like it, but you got to like it. Okay? Yeah. That's the key, and that's where skills will get you. Okay? I had a director of our tech center here in the county. I was going over this with him, and he said, and he does a lot of career work, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, you only really need one really good skill. Well, that's true, but if you have two or three, it kind of gives you a package there and so forth. So anyway, that's the key to it. And then those other areas of tests and so forth, and interest in for our backup support, and grades are backup support and so forth. So you end up with a package. Now, once you've got this list from these 5 or 6 different categories, then you have a list that can change over time. Okay, I encourage students, to put it in their phone and so forth, or on a card, index card or whatever. Mm-hmm. And when you come up with a skill or an idea or something that's better than something on your list, cross one off and add the new one as you go along. But this process gave you a starting point. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Wow. Okay? Yeah. And it's a starting point based on some logic and some problem solving, not just seat of the pants kind of thing.
Exactly.
Now, the seat of the pants stuff is great if you're going to take a date to the prom. If it doesn't work out, who cares? Mm-hmm. This is a little more serious than that, you know.
It definitely is.
It really is. And it needs a logical, rational process and so forth to work with. Mm-hmm. Then some of the resources that are in the end of the book and so forth, there's a list of websites in there that you can log on to and get good information. So there's a lot of good materials out there, okay? Right. Then there's a problem-solving example in it, an in-depth one. It's actually a combination of about 4 or 5 different models and so forth that we had good luck with in the school. I taught problems of democracy for a while in the high school, and we would have the kids go out and research a community issue or problem, and they would go through this problem-solving model. And it took time, and they did it in groups and so forth, but it worked out very well. And then there are some learning techniques. Now, what we found in these conferences, when you got about the end of it, it became evident that there were certain barriers for the kids' academic success. And you identified what some of those were. And then I put some materials in the book to help deal with those issues. And there's information on learning techniques, on motivation, besides the problem solving in the websites. But learning techniques was a big one. There's a lot of materials out there in the market for that, and they're good.
Oh, yeah.
They're very good. But, this is in a kind of a condensed version where you've got, it's easy to look them up and that type of thing to use, and you can kind of keep them with you. I'll tell you, for a while we had a student manual that we would get for the students and give them out at the beginning of the year, and we put that kind of information in that manual from the company.
Wow.
But we put learning techniques and some motivation type things, and then general information about the calendar and all that for the school year that the kids could references. And I, as a counselor, I had numerous students would say, because it came a point with budget cuts and we took it out and so forth. And said, why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
But kids appreciate it, especially the ones that are more academically motivated and so forth.
Yeah.
They did really use them. So this whole information comes from a number of different sources and so forth. But we did it because out of need. Okay. And like I said, it worked good. But until you've kind of gone through the activities and so forth, you're not really going to see the value of it.
Right.
Okay.
How important is it for a parent, right, to get involved with this? I think that a lot of parents just think that they're going to leave it up to the teacher to teach, and the teacher teaches, and that's the school system, and I'm not getting involved in that. And some parents don't realize that their participation may be more valuable than they know.
Far more valuable than they know. Keep in mind, when you send kids, I didn't mention this, when you send kids out shadowing, you get a lot of feedback and information. When you conduct the student parent conference with the counselor, where do these parents work? Yeah. They work in all these places.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get immediate feedback from the parent on, hey, yeah, we're doing this now. Is the school really up to date on that? Change is so rampant.
Yeah, it is.
That the local school needs a source of continuous information from local businesses to stay up to date on what's really important. It used to be, if you were up to date for 5 years ago, you were fine. No. Now, 5 months, you're outdated. Yeah, I mean, now we're going into AI. Who knows where that's going to take us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to have that constant flow and so forth. And secondly, I think you can relate to this one. Schools kind of have a tendency to think they know how to do it right, whether businesses are doing it right or not. There can be kind of an edge between those two groups. And you'll see it more as you get into the colleges and university kind of thing and so forth. You got to have a process to overcome that.
Oh, wow.
Because that edge between the two hurts the kids.
It does.
That hurts the kids. And that's the last thing you want to be doing. So it's this whole idea, well, I'm a teacher and I know, I'm a counselor, I know, is baloney. Yeah, wow. You may have known when you were in college, and you may have known 2 years ago. Doesn't mean you know now.
Exactly. Things change.
Of course,
very
in
fast.
Life in general.
Yeah.
When we say "I know," we tend to cut off the learning process. That's one of the worst phrases in the English language.
Wow.
I know, because we don't. We're making a judgment based on what we know about a situation, and there's 100 times more information on that than what we're aware of. Yet we're making that judgment. Big mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's crazy. Wow.
It is.
What can, and I have to say this, it's like, okay, so it's not just parents. It could be someone who's concerned about the next generation coming up. Because, it could be a grandparent. It could be someone who's never been a parent that can still
I can't tell you the number of situations where, actually, it goes beyond that. We had situations where parents weren't available. Some were in jail, so obviously not available.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Grandparents work great. Just an adult that knows the kid, now get this, and the kid respects him.
Mm-hmm.
But knows the kid from when the kid was real little and so forth. That again, going back to 4 on up, becomes a big issue there. Those people work just as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if the kid respects the person, that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say it can be far beyond just the parent, you're asking a critical question. It's so important.
Mm. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That to me, that speaks volumes. Is there,
Yeah.
I mean, we need, I mean, this book. I mean, what is it in this book that you feel is the most important thing that parents and students alike, and maybe even teachers, should begin to take away?
Well, the critical thing from a school and curriculum is skills.
Mm.
I mean, what are you really doing in any class? You're teaching skills.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the ballpark, and that's why it's so important in this process, and that's why it's so important to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're putting together a resume and that type of thing and doing an interview, skills is one of the critical issues that the person interviewing is after.
Yes.
What, not just what you're good at, because they're very much aware. If you like what you're doing, you'll become good at it.
That's right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to pay the price to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, companies now, you know, the idea that you come in totally ready to hit the deck running and so forth, and there's no really transition period and so forth or learning curve there, they realize that that's very important.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more important because change is so rapid.
That's right.
You know,
right.
And so it's almost getting like in schools you teach the basics and so forth, but then the application of that becomes something the companies have to adapt the new employee to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that all gets back to the skill thing. And again, if you can identify the right skills, and there's a process in the book to do that, which works very well, you know, you got a great starting point.
That's wonderful. Wow.
But skills, to answer your question specifically, it's skills.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Is there anything that we've missed today that you would like to go over? Because, I mean, we can only do so much, in an interview. However, I think that it's very important what you've done, because you have brought back, I mean, I remember going to shop class. I remember going to mechanic. I had like my friends going to mechanics class. I remember having, a plastic class. I mean, where you make like things out of plastic. I remember all of these things. I remember handling the big equipment, the hot equipment, the nail gun and all that stuff, and we did that. And some of the stuff we couldn't handle, the teacher handled it, but we still got the education of how to use it. So I think that made us a little bit more, and gave us a little bit more of an advantage than what they have today. What is it that we missed, and what can we say about that?
You had hands-on.
Yes,
is what you had
I needed that, and I
not
needed
just theory.
Mm-hmm.
Not just theory. You had hands-on, that's so critical. Just as a side point here, schools went through that era when computers really came in. I'm thinking, well, computers are going to take over and do everything, so we don't need all the vocational classes. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
That was a huge mistake. I remember in our school district, when they were in that process, we tried to get them to not do that. But of course, it was a money issue and so forth. It costs more to teach those courses than it does an algebra class or something. Mm-hmm. And because of, consumables and lower class sizes and so forth. But computers are great.
Yeah, they are.
But all they do is help us do what we were doing anyway.
Exactly. They
don't pour concrete, but they will sure help you in the process of pouring concrete.
Right.
That's just an example, but it's true across the board. Right. In terms of accuracy, it's incredible how they can help. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we really missed it back then. And I know in our school district, they've re-implemented a lot of that stuff because it was such a mistake. And they also said, well, you got your VOTEC for 11th and 12th graders. No, you need that stuff in 9th and 10th grade also.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Because you had, you could drop out of school at 16. Well, hello, they don't get any of it.
That's right.
And a lot of that dropping out. I'll tell you, I had a kid sit in my office, and he said, Mr. Bricker, he was a 10th grader, and I was trying to convince him not to drop out of school. Okay, mm-hmm. You don't offer anything I need. Ooh. We had dropped all the vocational stuff. Okay. And of course, I tried to explain to him why that wasn't true, but I knew in my heart the kid was dead right.
Oh.
Because of what we had done.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if you've got a gym class and a vocational class, and a study hall, and then 3 academics, you can convince the kid to stay in school.
Right.
Because they're at least doing 2 things they like to do. Okay, and with that, they'll put up with the English, the math, whatever. Okay.
Right.
But when you throw it all out, then
it's done.
Yep. And
it's
we got
done.
rid of the study hall, so that all they had was the academics left. And
how do you get rid of study
hall? It really
hall?
hurt us. But we've learned. They've learned from it, and they're kind of moving back and so forth.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get how you can get rid of study hall. You know how important study hall was for me, and also peer counseling. Peer counseling.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
if your study hall was done right, if you had peer tutoring in the study hall, that was great.
Yes, that's what we had back in the day. Oh yeah, because we could help each other.
Everybody just sit there and keep their mouth shut, then not so much. But if you've got peer tutoring going on, and who makes the best peer tutorings? If you're a 9th grader, a 10th grader is the best tutor.
Exactly.
Why? Because they just had that.
Yep. We had.
You don't need a 12th grader or
no, you don't.
a parent or something like that. You just need a 10th grader.
When I went into school and I was in the 9th grade, all 9th graders were required to take peer counseling and peer tutelage, peer one-on-one, like you are going to be the teacher, the assistant, or the counselor, or the tutor, and every 9th grader was required to take it. You could not skip it, because in 10th grade we switched over to what? Peer tutoring, and we were tutoring the 9th graders, and then as we got higher, we tutored the grade under us. So I thought that was amazing when that was all the way through my school years, and I didn't have the disgraceful, I would say, opportunity to experience them taking it away from me, because we saved. And can you imagine, and not to cut you off or anything, but I just think it's so important that we understand that we, as a group of people in my 12th grade year, talked down a suicide. Only because we were already the peer counselor and the peer tutor of this particular student, who was in, I believe, the 10th grade or the 11th grade at the time. And because we had the relationship between all of us and nobody was trying to beat anybody else up, we all were helping each other. You know what I mean? We were able to do that. You can't do that now. Where is that now? Where is that?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the whole point. We have gotten rid of a lot of the fundamental things that were extremely helpful. Why we did that,
I don't know.
We need to go back a little more to tradition, and because the thing that has not changed is human nature.
Yeah.
These kids today, from a human nature standpoint, are very similar to what their parents were, grandparents, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
In terms of the emotions you feel, what motivates you, and all that kind of stuff. That part of the human race kind of stays constant.
Right.
And so it worked when you were there. It worked, but it's just we tend to let stuff go and then don't analyze what we've lost because we let it go.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway.
Did we miss anything today, Mr. Bricker?
I think we've hit pretty much everything that I was concerned about here.
Good.
It's it's skills, it's student-parent relationships, it's advice from the community. It's notice it's really using the whole community to help advise and for the students.
Right.
To help educate. It's not just using the school. It's using the school, the parents, the work community, community service organization. It's using them all.
Right.
I know you had a book. What was it? Hillary had a book out. What is it? Takes a village or something like that. Well, it does.
It really does.
It does take a village to which means everybody. Yeah. All the entities of a community to really be successful.
That's right.
And kids appreciate it. Here's the thing: kids, what they say to you at 15 years of age is not necessarily what they mean.
Right.
Because there's all those inner feelings and being upset and all that fit into that. But the bigger picture is, as they get older, they appreciate it.
Exactly.
Okay? That's the whole point.
Yes, I can concur. I agree with you on that. I definitely do.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bricker, for being on the show today. I appreciate it, and also for being the sponsor of today's show. It has been such a wonderful thing to and being enlightened and understanding that parents and students and teachers and children alike need to kind of jump in this whole I guess
Yep.
pool of learning and
Yep. Yep.
and get back what we lost. Definitely get back what we
Absolutely.
lost.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With
And
the computers, with the technology,
yes.
but get the fundamentals back in there.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right. Well,
Yep.
we have the QR code on your screen right there, so you guys can go ahead and check that book out. But it is academic enhancement tools, and you can find that on Amazon. Where else can they find that?
Barnes and Noble, and remember, it's the 24 edition,
Okay, the
not the
24 edition.
13 edition.
The 24
I
edition.
revised the book significantly,
Okay.
and so we recopyrighted it and so forth last year.
All right.
So, the problem is on what is it, Google and so forth, you get stuff on there, you can't get it off.
Yeah, that is true.
So yeah. Old editions are there, but the old editions aren't accurate.
Right, I got you.
A significant change in the focus and resources and a number of other things are different in the 24 edition, and it's much better.
Well, we do have that QR code so people can go and check it out for themselves. So they can check it out and see if that is something that they would like to actually have. It's not just you as a parent or you as a student, but also you as a concerned person, an educator, a grandparent.
Sure.
Anybody can actually implement these things.
But we all play all those roles sooner or later,
Yes, definitely. Thank you again so much, Mr. Bricker, for being on the show. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different, but most of all, don't forget to check that book out. If that is something that inspires you, that that you're very interested in, or that you want to help with, one or the other. And make sure you get the right edition. It's going to be the 24th edition. Am I correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Awesome. So until next time, guys, don't forget to dare to be different, and we will see you soon. Bye.